The stage of America's Got Talent hummed with quiet anticipation as the production crew hurried about, adjusting lights, checking cables, and guiding performers to their positions. Backstage, hidden behind the massive LED screens that glowed with swirling colors, stood a 14-year-old Filipino boy from Manila, nervous, excited, and shaking just enough to feel his heartbeat in his fingertips. His name was Leo Martinez, though the world would soon remember him as something bigger. Leo's hair was slicked back with careful effort. His mother had helped him fix it minutes earlier, smoothing each strand like she was preparing him for a coronation. He wore a simple but striking outfit, a black leather jacket, fitted jeans, and polished shoes that gleamed under the backstage lights. He looked like a young Elvis Presley, but his eyes, deep, hopeful, and determined, were uniquely Filipino. A stagehand tapped his shoulder. "You're up next. Ready?" Leo nodded, even though his breath felt shallow. He whispered to himself in Tagalog, "Kaya ko to para kay mama. I can do this for mom." When the heavy curtains parted, the audience noise hit him first, a mix of clapping, murmurs, and scattered cheers from people who loved seeing young contestants. The blue and red AGT lights carved long streaks across the stage floor as Leo walked forward, each step echoing louder than it should. He felt small in the massive theater, but he also felt something powerful rising inside him. The judges looked at him with curiosity. Simon Cowell, leaning back with arms crossed, wore his usual skeptical expression, a silent challenge. Heidi Klum smiled warmly, always encouraging with her eyes. Sofia Vergara tilted her head, intrigued. Howie Mandel gave him a friendly nod. "Hello there," Simon said, voice calm but probing. "What's your name and where are you from?" He stepped forward with surprising confidence, adding subtle Elvis gestures, a soft sway, a gentle knee bend, a charismatic turn of his head. The crowd erupted halfway through the song, shouting and clapping, but Leo didn't tea-break. He sang even harder, even stronger, like this was the moment he had been waiting for his entire life. Every note cut through the room with precision, the vibrato at the edge of his voice sending chills down spines. The deeper he went into the chorus, the more the audience rose to their feet. It was no longer just a performance, it was an arrival. And then came the final note. Leo extended it longer than anyone expected, pouring every ounce of emotion he carried from Manila to America into that one breathtaking sound. When he finished, the theater exploded into a thunderous standing ovation. The cheers were deafening, the applause relentless. The crowd already knew they had just witnessed the birth of something extraordinary. Leo stood frozen, eyes shining, chest rising and falling as he tried to process what was happening. He covered his mouth, overwhelmed, as the sound of thousands of cheering voices washed over him. And the judges, all four stood, even Simon. The boy from Manila had just conquered one of the biggest stages in the world. The echoes of the thunderous standing ovation still lingered in the air as Leo stood center stage, hands trembling, trying to catch his breath. He had just delivered the most powerful performance of his life, but he didn't know yet that the night was far from over. The AGT audience was still buzzing, their cheers rolling across the room like waves that refused to die down. Simon leaned into his microphone, unable to hide the awe in his voice. "Leo, I don't think anyone expected that. That was unbelievable." The crowd roared again, chanting his name. "Leo, Leo, Leo!" The boy from Manila blinked rapidly, trying to keep the tears from spilling. Backstage, his mother watched with her hands pressed tightly over her mouth, her eyes glossy with pride. Heidi suddenly lifted her hand. "Do you have another song prepared?" The audience gasped. Simon shot her a surprised look, but he didn't object. He wanted more too. Everyone did. Leo's heart raced. He had practiced only one backup song, but it was one that meant everything to him. The producers glanced at each other, then quickly nodded. The orchestra conductor raised his baton. The lights shifted again, this time slower, softer. A gentle blue glow washed over the stage, as if the world had paused to listen to a secret. Leo stepped forward and said quietly into the mic, "I would like to sing, Can't Help Falling in Love. I want to dedicate it to my mom." A soft awe echoed from the audience, and several phones lifted instantly to record the moment. Simon's expression softened. He understood immediately what this meant. The pianist pressed the first note. The iconic melody floated through the theater like a warm breeze, carrying every emotion Leo had ever felt. The struggles in Manila, the nights performing in streets and plazas, the moments when music was the only thing he had. Leo closed his eyes and began. Wise men say. His voice this time was different, not loud, not powerful, but tender, soulful, pure. He wasn't trying to sound like Elvis anymore. He wasn't performing for applause. He was singing from somewhere deeper, somewhere fragile and honest. He opened his eyes slowly and they glistened under the lights. The audience fell completely silent. The camera focused on the judges. Simon, for once, looked speechless. His eyes softened, almost emotional. Heidi, her face glowing, held her hand over her heart. Sophia wiped a tear that escaped down her cheek. Howie shook, his head in disbelief, whispering, "This kid is unreal." Leo lifted his hand slightly as he sang, as if guiding the music through the air. His voice carried a story, a boy who dreamed big despite having little, a boy who believed that music could heal the wounds life gave him. As he reached the next verse, he added a gentle Filipino touch, a subtle shift in tone, a warm vibrato, a heartfelt vulnerability that made the lyrics feel brand new. People in the audience leaned forward, some holding their breath. A mother hugged her child. A Filipino family waved their flag proudly. A group of teenagers recorded the performance with tears streaming down their faces. Every person in the room felt the same thing. This wasn't an audition anymore. This was history. Leo stepped closer to the edge of the stage, locking eyes with his mother backstage. She mouthed, "I love you," unable to control her emotions. He smiled softly and continued, his voice floating like a prayer. "Take my hand. Take my whole life, too." The theater seemed to glow as Leo hit the final chorus with an angelic falsetto, effortlessly controlled, filled with purity and soul. It was a note so delicate, so breathtaking, that even the toughest critics in the room felt goosebumps race down their arms. And then, silence. A silence so full of emotion that for a second, even Leo wondered if time had stopped. Then, the room exploded. The audience leapt to their feet again, clapping, screaming, cheering louder than before. The sound was deafening. Some people in the balcony waved their arms like they were at a concert. A group of Filipinos shouted, "Mabuhay ang Pinoy!" while others cried openly, overwhelmed with pride. Leo's vision blurred as tears finally fell. This wasn't a dream, it was real. Simon stood up, slamming his hands on the desk with a rare look of pure excitement. "That was extraordinary," he said, his voice almost shaky. "Absolutely extraordinary." Heidi wiped her tears. "Leo, that was beautiful. You touched every soul in this room." Sophia nodded vigorously. "It was so emotional. You're so special." Howie spread his arms. "You're not just a kid singing Elvis. You're an artist. A real one." Leo covered his mouth again as the audience continued chanting his name. He felt like his heart might burst from the sheer magic of the moment. But then, he noticed Simon whisper something to the producers. Something urgent. The crowd quieted slightly, sensing something big was about to happen. Leo looked unsure, hopeful, afraid, and then Simon pushed his chair back. He stepped forward, and the entire theater held its breath, because everyone knew something unforgettable was about to happen next. The roar of the audience still thundered through the theater, but beneath the noise there was something else, a growing tension, a spark in the air that everyone could feel. The energy shifted the moment Simon stood up from his chair. The other judges looked at him, confused but excited. The crowd hushed gradually, whispers spreading like ripples through a lake. People reached for their phones instinctively, sensing that something massive was about to unfold. Leo stood on stage, chest rising and falling from the whirlwind of emotion, his eyes red from crying. He didn't know what was happening, only that Simon Cowell, one of the toughest judges in the world, was walking toward him. Each step Simon took echoed loudly. The audience gasped. Leo swallowed hard, frozen in place, his microphone trembling in his hands. Simon reached the edge of the judge's platform and paused, staring at the young Filipino boy with an expression that wasn't common for him. Something soft, something proud, something full of belief. He opened his mouth to speak, but the crowd was too low. He looked around, lifted a hand slowly, and the entire room fell silent like someone pressed a mute button. Simon breathed out and spoke into the microphone, his voice steady but warm. "Leo, What you just did is the definition of magic. A wave of emotional murmurs swept through the crowd. Simon continued, stepping closer to the stage. Your first song shocked us, your second song moved us, but your heart, your soul, that's what makes you truly special. Leo blinked rapidly, tears streaming again. Simon pointed at him gently. I don't think you realize how many people you've just touched. You reminded us why this show exists. The audience applauded, soft but passionate. Then Simon smiled, one of those rare, genuine smiles that fans replay in clips for years. And for that, I think you deserve this. He turned toward the golden buzzer. Time slowed, literally slowed. The music in the theater faded into suspenseful silence. The camera zoomed in on Leo's trembling face. His mother backstage clasped her hands together, her entire body shaking as if she knew exactly what was coming but still couldn't believe it. Simon placed both hands on the golden buzzer panel. The audience screamed, "Do I tee, do I tee, do I tee?" He looked back at Leo one more time, nodded, and slammed his hands down. A burst of golden light exploded across the stage. Boom! The golden buzzer triggered, sending a storm of shimmering confetti shooting upward before raining down in slow, sparkling waves. The music swelled into the iconic golden buzzer anthem that every AGT fan knows, vibrating through the theater with emotional weight. Leo's reaction was instant and raw. His knees buckled. His hands flew to his face. He dropped the microphone as he sobbed uncontrollably, overcome with joy he had never imagined in his wildest dreams. The audience erupted, shouting, crying, screaming. Cheering. Some people jumped in the aisles. Others waved Filipino flags with pride. Couples hugged, families recorded, and strangers cried together. It was no longer just a moment for Leo. It was a moment for everyone watching. Backstage, his mother burst into tears, collapsing into the arms of a crew member as she whispered prayers of gratitude. Every struggle, every sacrifice, every night they spent dreaming, it all led to this. The confetti continued to fall as Leo looked up at the golden storm above him. His face was drenched in tears, his breath shaking with disbelief. He kept repeating, "Thank you, thank you, oh my God, thank you." The judges stood together, clapping, smiling, celebrating him. Heidi blew him a kiss. Sophia cried openly, wiping her cheeks. Howie applauded with the biggest grin he had displayed all night. Simon walked up onto the stage, stepping through the glittering confetti. He approached Leo slowly, and when the boy saw him, he rushed forward, hugging him tightly. Simon hugged him back. Another rare moment. He pulled away slightly and looked into Leo's overwhelmed eyes. "You are not just a singer," Simon said softly, loud enough for the mic to catch. "You're a global superstar in the making." More confetti blasted from the cannons. More cheers erupted. Leo covered his face again, shaking his head in disbelief. The moment felt like a dream, a golden, glowing dream he never wanted to wake up from. Simon guided Leo forward, letting him stand directly under the brightest spotlight as the final wave of confetti cascaded around him. The camera zoomed in on his face, capturing the exact moment his life changed forever. The crowd chanted again, "Filipino Elvis, Filipino Elvis, Filipino Elvis." Leo opened his arms to the falling gold, his tears mixing with the glitter on his cheeks. He looked up at the sky of confetti as if thanking the heavens. This wasn't just an audition. This wasn't just a performance. This was his beginning. A Filipino boy from Manila standing in a golden blizzard on one of the world's biggest stages, embraced by millions who would soon watch his story. And as the last piece of confetti drifted down, landing softly on his jacket, Leo knew one thing with absolute certainty. His life would never, ever be the same.